Hi, I'm Bill Mosley, and you're in the horror basement. Lick my plate, you dog bitch.
I'm Johnny, and welcome to the Horror Basement. Coming to you from the TN Horror News studio in the basement of my mom's trailer. And as always, we have one of our local horror experts here with us.
JimJam here.
And we are serving up horror all over the land like biscuits and gravy, baby. You know how we do. So Yeti's not here with us, but we got an interview for you guys. We're not doing the splitting them up. Mother's Day's coming up, and you need to go get your mom a candle from Macabre Melts.
For the love of horror candle.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, for $5, we'll call your baby mama or your mother and tell them how much you love her. So if you ladies are hearing this, and your husband or your man listens to us, and you don't get a phone call, he don't love you.
Maybe we should just do a.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying he don't love you.
Well, so if you the way you do this is just DM us for our PayPal link, and you can send us $5, and we will
call your mother or baby mama on Mother's Day and tell them how much you love them. Yeah. That was just a spontaneous thing. Well, but yeah, so if you don't get a phone call, they don't love you. Sorry. Mothers, baby mamas, sorry.
Yeah, $5 can get you a personalized message from the Horror Basement podcast crew.
Yeah, sounds interesting, don't it? I bet you are just like, oh my God. Oh my God.
We're going to be making it rain soon.
Yeah. Okay, just watched the trailer, not interested.
Really?
That was garbage.
The trailer got you feeling like it's garbage.
Yeah, all of it's garbage. The stupid music that they wanted to play over the trailer, I didn't like any of it.
Well, you need to read Isaac Thorne's article that he just posted about remakes.
No, I just think that it looks like garbage. I don't care about it being remade. Like, it doesn't affect me that they remade it. That I don't care.
I just wanted to plug that article.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I don't care if people do remakes. It don't bother me.
Well, I'm going to watch it. I don't know if I'll go to theaters or not.
Yeah, like, it won't be to theater to go watch that movie. Because it just looked... I mean, I've already seen it because I already watched the other one. And no one believed him. So, turns out he's a killer, guys. Turns out he's a killer. But how do they get there? I don't know, and I don't care. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. How do you feel about it?
It kind of excited me in a way.
Well, that's fine. You can be excited about it. I'm not going to, rain on your parade that it sucked.
You always rain on my parade that something sucks. So, yeah. You're going
I'm
to rain
just
on
saying.
my parade.
I didn't care for it. I don't know. It was too busy.
So it don't get you excited?
No, it didn't really tell anything. It's just like what we already know is that no one's going to believe the kid that Chucky's alive or whatever, he's hacked or...
Yeah, that's what it's going to be because hell...
I mean, so...
Do you see the thermostat? How does the thermostat... Now, no thermostat go up 150 degrees.
No, I wouldn't think so. But my thing is, like, inevitably, if it is where someone hacked it, it's just whoop-de-doo. You know what I mean? You got some psycho that's hacked a fucking doll. Like, so it don't give Chucky a personality, No, because it makes it seem like he's been hacked. They don't say anything else.
So it's not like the Brad Dourif character or whatever.
And I'm just wondering if the whole company wasn't hacked because the woman's in the car and the car takes off on its own.
So would that be a Tesla?
I don't know what it is. It was owned by the company. But there's a lot of cars apparently that can be hacked, so I don't know.
But can they drive?
I don't know.
I don't think regular cars are going to be able to be. Well, no, you got cruise control.
Yeah, there's some things now that people are claiming, but I don't know.
I know some cars though the cruise control won't work until you get up to a certain speed. So
true.
Unless it's a fully electric car, then it could probably be hacked.
I don't know. It has to be on the system though. It has to be connected to the internet.
That's true.
If your
But
car's not
Teslas
connected,
aren't they?
I don't know. I have
Well,
no
hell,
clue.
you got OnStar on Chevy and stuff, so that's internet. And like our friend Bridget, she has her Escalade. It has internet. She has her own hotspot. So yeah, if you got the right car,
I think you probably have to do something else to it. But if that's the case, like I say, they didn't. I don't know. I just didn't care. Like I don't know. It didn't excite me.
yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in seeing where they go. I just didn't like that trailer.
Yeah, maybe they should.
It didn't really tell what's going to happen, which I guess they don't want to, but it just looked like a mess.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. I mean, if you're excited for the trailer, be excited for it.
Well, yeah, that's coming out this summer, y'all.
All right, guys. So we are here with Cody Meirick from Scary Stories, a documentary. Cody, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'll be upfront and honest with you. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was not in my childhood. And watching this documentary...
Well, I'm sorry.
But watching this documentary, I'm like, wow, people really love this thing. And it was really interesting just to hear and see everyone's story in it. So I guess I'm taking it that it was a big part of your childhood?
Sure. I mean, I'm probably a lot of people of my age. I'm about to turn 39, so I definitely grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? When these books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, there's 3 books published between 1981 to 1991, and so I was one of those that kind of remembered them in my 20s, and I was like, because yes, I definitely did. I moved on to, I read a lot of R.L. Stein. I probably was into Stephen King by the time I was in middle school, but definitely in elementary school, I started with these books. I started with R.L. Stein and a number of other, scary children's literature, scary kids books. And it kind of blew up. I don't know. I mean, it was there before maybe, but definitely a lot of people kind of remember the 80s and 90s as a particularly robust time for, children's literature, thinking, you know what, yes, kids like this and this and this, but a lot of kids like the scary stuff. So, and it gets them reading. So that's, so yeah, I mean, I definitely, looking back, I kind of, yes, people remember the illustrations, absolutely, but also a lot of people just remember particular stories, creeping them out in some way, shape, or form. I kind of remember the source material, me being kind of the researchy type and being interested in that kind of thing. I remember thumbing to the back where it'd have pages and pages of source material and kind of getting into the folklore. It's all based in folklore and urban legend. And so I remember just kind of enjoying going back to the source material and kind of thumbing through that and getting different variations of the stories and where do they come from. Oh, this one comes all the way from China. This one comes from my neck of the woods, and I'm from Southwest Missouri, and I actually found that a number of these stories came from that area, and so I found it very interesting. I wasn't going to be able to travel to every location these stories come from, but I found it interesting let's talk about a collection from a certain area and find some similarities and that sort of thing. So yes, no, I very much remember reading these books and at times though with the documentary, I admit I tried to make it interesting even for some of those who maybe didn't read these particular books, but we're very much open to the genre at an early age, because that's really, I mean, I haven't met a single person who, if they love a horror movie or horror books now, it started, late elementary, middle school. I mean, almost always. And so that love of horror starts early,
How many different areas did you travel to? Because I was curious watching the documentary. I was like, I wonder how many places he traveled to get all this, footage and everything.
So I definitely went to both coasts. I'm in Chicago, so into some individual interviews were here, and you didn't think too much of it because we didn't get too much into it. But then I did a trip through the Midwest. I did Missouri, which I just said I'm from the Ozarks, Southwest Missouri, and there's a number of stories from that area. So I found that to be an interesting gateway to kind of to do that area. I also went through Indiana, so there were a number of interviews there. That was talk about low budget filmmaking. I mean, there was a number of things that we did one long weekend where we filmed a number of different things and just kind of and it's done at different times in the documentary, so you don't really think about it. But me having filmed it, know a number of those things I sporadically did in one big trip. But then I also went to Seattle. We kind of ended things in Seattle because there was an interesting focus that developed throughout in the process where I really looked at a particular case because it kind of coincided with the death of the author who he passed away shortly after the third book, and which was early 90s, and there was a particular case that made national news. And I found some really interesting footage, and so I kind of, rather than, we definitely touch a little bit on different cases, but for a documentary purpose, I found it more interesting. Okay, let's touch on the fact that these were challenged in different ways. But let's focus on a particular one and let's get under the hood, so to speak, and really kind of talk about that particular case. So we did Seattle, and then I did do the East Coast. We were in New Jersey, which is where Alvin Schwartz and his family lived at the time, and he did a lot of the research there in the Princeton area. So did Boston. It kind of was like, okay. This is low budget, and it was done over a number of years. So these were different trips that span roughly 3 years at least.
3 years, wow. But documentaries do take a long time, though.
About how the whole documentary took 5 years. I mean,
admittedly,
it depends on where your start and end point is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been definitely 5 years since I started things. Yeah.
Well, obviously, that we're into it because I backed it, and I didn't even think to look for this, but Johnny sent me a picture of the TV and it has my name, in the credits.
I watched the credits because you showed a bunch of, or there was a bunch of pictures with tattoos.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I seen the one woman that had the sleeve of it, and I've seen these. Like I said, I didn't grow up with it, but I've heard stories. Which we all told the campfire stories, the man with the hook comes out of the woods, whatever, or whatever, he scrapes the hook across the car, something. But I was just wondering, the tattoos, like, did y'all just request people send that stuff in, or?
It was a little bit of a mix. I mean, I've been very social on social media for a number of years, and so people send me stuff. Depending on how the tattoo is, technically, I don't necessarily need permission if it's not something that is identifiable and that sort of thing. So it was a little bit of a mix of people saying, "Hey, can you put my tattoo in your documentary," and so on and so forth, and then others that I didn't get 100% permission to, but I didn't absolutely have to, and it's shown very
to me if it's online, I mean, it's kind of
it could be public domain kind of thing.
Well, if it's online and you don't show their face, then you're only showing a tattoo. I mean, that's passed around everywhere. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah.
I'd be happy. I'd be like, well, there's my tattoo. That's awesome.
At the beginning of the documentary, I loved hearing the Hearst song being actually played by a guitar. I guess the guy that was being interviewed, he did the intro song, right?
Yep.
That was a cool song.
The idea was I edited it a number of different ways, and that's what you saw I kind of settled with was like, let's start with him, and then it intros into his song. And I thought that was and it was just very fortuitous to be in a location. Not to say I didn't find it and put some effort into it, but ultimately, like, it was very fortuitous that I filmed him singing the Hearst song around a bunch of hearses. It was pretty neat.
So how did you? Some of the locations that you chose, I don't know. I guess it looked like abandoned buildings. Mm-hmm. Like, where did you find the? Like, I was just like, they got this place. Like, people just volunteered to come out to the abandoned building and do it.
Actually,
I mean, that's a start of an urban legend.
Yeah.
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 So there's a few cases that I did kind of like in my old basement, that sort of thing, and I lit myself and did it, and you didn't think too much of it. But a number of them were done in Gary, Indiana, which is like if you're in Chicago and you're doing a movie, and they do quite a few movies here, and you want a demolished location or a really spooky location, what you do is you go out to Gary, Indiana, which is a town that has been hit hard over the years and has a lot of abandoned buildings. And at least at the time, I think I've heard since then it's a little trickier. But at the time that I filmed this, which was 3-4 years ago, at that filmed that part, you could rent out a location for not an absorbent amount of money. And so what I did is, again, Gary, Indiana is in a horrible drive, and I could get a number of people to do a day trip out there, and so I fit in, 8 or 9 interviews in one day, and we just kind of moved around and stuff. I rented out the space, and the place was huge, and it had a lot of different looks you could go for. So I kind of do it on my DVD commentary. I talk about how a little bit of this is going to be like a 101 on doing a low budget film. Okay, you do a lot of interviews in one day. You try to jam pack the days as best you can, so on and so forth, within reason. And but so yes, that's a reason to be lazy about it and just do interview after interview and not try to make each one look cool. But I'm always overly ambitious with that. And actually what I did, I mean, you definitely noticed the locations that were in like abandoned, look like haunted house-ish type locations, certainly abandoned locations and stuff. But a number of the other interviews were in front of books, like in libraries and such. Mm-hmm. And so that was at an early stage. I was going to see how much I could juxtapose those two things back and forth, like a kind of a bookish, library-ish look, along with the spooky type locations, and kind of go back and forth, and as much as I could, anyways.
Oh yeah, it was real cool.
I guess cut scenes between the interviews, like how you would have the librarian that was, I guess, kind of at war with the principal. Who did the animation for that? Like the kind of cartoon?
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that too.
Because they still had I can't remember the illustrator's name that did the books, but it still had that feel, like they were imitating that guy.
Kind of early on. I mean, I have been doing social media, just kind of building an audience, and then also it's been a fun ride, just kind of exploring all the people. And some of the interviews came along through people who reached out to me and, for instance, said, these books were a big influence on me, and here's what I do for a living now. And that kind of stuff was very interesting. So anyway, so Shane Hunt was one of the people that early on I noticed does just a spot on, Stephen Gammell, esque artwork. It would be original work, but it would be in his style. And that was kind of the idea early on, was to talk about Stephen Gammell's illustrations having a huge impact on artists. So Shane Hunt, I kind of connected with, among others, early on, and he also does animation, and he's done a number of things for. The tricky part with him is, I think up until this documentary, he'd done animation, he'd done artwork that was similar to, in the same style of Stephen Gammell, but he hadn't melded the two. He never animated it.
Oh.
He'd done animations of other styles and that stuff, so on and so forth. So this was kind of a exploration for him to say, okay, let's try to, let's see what we can do as far as animating the style. And that's what we come on. And it was great. I mean, it was just, I think I've been hearing over and over again, people are really impressed. Now, it's not a adaptation of the stories. What we do with the animation is we tell a different story having to do with the books in a particular school library, and a story there, and it's kind of interwoven with the rest of the narrative of the documentary. But yeah, Shane Hunnan is his name, and you can look him up. He's always doing really cool stuff.
I also liked how they were, kind of incorporated the Goosebump books as well.
Yes. Well, R.L. Stine, I mean, that was, people talk about him being kind of the Stephen King of the children's book, genre and that sort of thing. So it was just a really great experience being able to interview him and a number of other authors. And what I purposely tried to do was stick with, scary children's literature of that era.
Yeah,
and so if you notice, I mean, I mostly interviewed other authors that were publishing in the 80s and 90s when these particular books, Scary Stories to Tell in Dark, were real popular, because I found it interesting. It's also just kind of a nostalgia thing. I mean, there were definitely other books that just kind of really blew up during that era and people, of my age and so on will be, oh yeah, I remember those books, Goosebumps, and so on. There were Scary Stories for Sleepovers and various other titles that got real popular during that time that were that got kids reading, and that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, Goosebumps. I mean, just like Scary Stories has, been rebooted to movies, and like it's just coming back around.
Scary Stories is just now getting a movie.
But Goosebumps, I'm saying though, it's coming, like all this stuff from our childhood is coming back to the forefront of. It's like, oh man, I remember
80s are coming back.
Well, the 80s and 90s they're definitely coming back, because I remember watching Goosebumps, on TV.
Yeah, it was on like Fox or something, wasn't it?
I don't know, but the TV shows. Speaking of stories, as I was saying, like the original fairy tale stories, like you hear now, like Little Red Riding Hood and all that, were really like gruesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark don't seem that gruesome.
Yeah, I mean that was a whole thing. Like, there were a number of avenues to go down with these books, and that's why I decided on it early on. Because, if you have the idea of doing a full length documentary, I mean, what you want to do is open doors, right? You want to say, okay, the illustrations, okay, great, we're going to spend a good amount of time on that. That'll be great. The folklore, well, they're right there. That opens a whole can of worms, and you can have really fun experience going in that direction. And something that's there in the finished documentary, but like I at a certain point had to cut a fair bit of it out, just because I felt like you could just do a whole different documentary on it, is scary children's literature, scary storytelling that has always existed, right? And so you can go down Grimm's fairy tales, you can go down, all kinds of avenues for the fact that, we've been scaring the bejesus out of kids for a very long time. It's not something that we just came up with in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I find that an interesting era of it, but no, I mean, we've been telling campfire stories to kids and scaring them since forever, and so it's not anything new. And it's and again, you could go down an avenue right there, just kind of talking about the history of how that, and how oftentimes it was cautionary tales, and that's how a lot of them start. That's how Grimm's fairy tales, a lot of those stories start, it's a cautionary tale, and it's what it's cautioning children to not do and so on is oftentimes a sign of its time and so on. So the Hook story, that's a good example, right? I mean, it came up about the time, the 60s and 70s, when a lot of teenagers were driving more, right? So and they were going out and partying and making out, yada yada yada. And so let's invent a guy with a hook who's bound to get you, so that you don't go out to Lover's Lane and go necking and so on and so forth. A lot of these stories are, again, a sign of its time.
Do you think Alvin would have written more books? Like, if he would, if he wouldn't have passed away, did anyone ever say like he had plans to write more of them or?
All right, so let me see. A couple directions to go there. Yes, absolutely. I mean, he published a third one shortly before he passed away, and he was on to other books were often folklore, not necessarily scary folklore, right? Because that was kind of his interest. Yes, he did kind of discover that, what, kids love the scary stuff, let's keep doing that. But his interest was more specifically around the research and the storytelling and the folklore more broadly. And so his last book, very, very last book, was more broadly about, folklore and folk tales, right? But yeah, I can't imagine he would have stopped. I think he still had a passion for telling stories up until the end. One question I did, and it's, I'm pretty sure it's in the DVD deleted or extra section, is I did ask, was there ever thought about a fourth book? And Barbara Schwartz, his wife, who's, if she's not 90, she's pushing 90. I remember her talking about hoping to see it before her 90th birthday. So anyway, I interviewed her, and she said, the fourth book is in a dark, dark room, which, if you're not familiar with In a Dark, Dark Room, that is Alvin Schwartz's a scary collection of books for younger readers. And so it's not exactly a scary stories to tell in a dark book, but he thought of it, or at least, Barbara Schwartz thinks of it as kind of the fourth book. Now, it's for younger readers, but they thought of it very fondly. And the story that is most remembered in that collection is The Green Ribbon, which I've heard over and over. I mean, among all the stories that are actually in those three books, the one gets mentioned, maybe not as much, but one of the top ones is The Green Ribbon. And I always correct people. Okay, technically that's not in the three books, but it's very much remembered, and it has an interesting history in and of itself. Are you guys familiar with The Green Ribbon?
No, I was about to ask you, what's The Green Ribbon?
Okay. So I'm not going to remember the names of the couple in the book, but anyways, a couple meet. They're young. They love each other. They start to grow a relationship. The girl always has this green ribbon around her neck, right? And,
I know this story.
And so he asked, okay, what's with the green ribbon? He said, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. And so they go on with their lives. She just doesn't want to talk about her green ribbon, right? And they get married, and they have children, and they grow old together. And finally, she's on her deathbed, a very old woman, and he's asked her many times over the years, but she's always denied. And he says, you're on your deathbed. He didn't say that, of course, but what I'm saying. Yeah. Can I finally see, what it is with the green ribbon? She says, go ahead and pull it. And so he pulls the green ribbon, and it comes off her neck, and then her head falls off.
Now I remember that story. As a kid, I read that story. I didn't know what it was from.
Did she pick her head back up? No, look what you did.
No.
I remember that story vividly, but it's almost like I remember a picture.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, it was different illustrations. It was done by a different person, but the illustrations are still popular, and that's a story. And the illustrations for the story are still passed around online a lot, as far as
like once
it spooked the bejesus out of them whenever they were 8 years old.
Once you said she wore a green ribbon around her neck, I was like, oh my God, I know this story. Like I do, because as a kid, like that was something that was, like you said, passed around.
Yep. It kind of has become like, and a number of these other stories have become like just a cultural thing that, again, the internet really helps to spread this kind of stuff, and then it becomes, and now I feel like to some degree the word "scary stories to tell in dark" is like a cultural thing that like people just say, you just say, oh, that's a scary stories to tell in dark, almost, It has become a cultural touchstone in a way.
I was wanting to ask, I don't know, I can't remember if y'all covered it in the documentary, or have they re-released the original books, like how they were in the 80s and 90s?
Yes, they have re-released. So we do get a little bit into it. They did do a re-release some time ago. It's probably been about 8 or 9 years since
they're probably jacked up in price, ain't they?
Well, no. So the one that they did about 8 years ago, they did new art, and a lot of people were up in arms saying, no. Stephen Gamel's art is just fantastic, and that's how we grew up with them, and we really want that. So what they did just in the past 1 to 2 years, they did another re-release and put Stephen Gamel's artwork back in. And
okay. So, I think about 3 years ago, I bought the ones that are not the original artwork, and I was like, man, I couldn't find them nowhere though. But if you wanted the original, you was gonna pay out the butt for them.
They're like $400 or $800.
Yeah.
When I was watching that documentary, I was like, wow.
There was a time for that, and kind of what I get into a little bit is kind of a celebratory. They returned to the original Stephen Gamel artwork and that sort of thing, because they just have done that in the past 2 years, and I'm sure they had in mind, this, adaptation that's in the works and that sort of thing. So if you go directly to the publisher HarperCollins, you can, again, you just have to look. If you're buying it on Amazon or somewhere else, you just kind of look and specifically, okay, which version is this? And so, because a lot of people grew up with those Stephen Gamel illustrations, so they want that version, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have to order them because my kids got a hold of them, and I can't find the ones that I ordered a couple years ago. There they are. Only $18.99 for the whole thing. No, there's one for $16.35. Now that's the redone artwork. No, it says with
classic. No. That's classic art.
Okay, yeah, there it is.
I think it's at that price point with Stephen Gamel. The covers are a little different, but the insides are virtually the exact same as the ones that were coming out in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, they come out in 2017 is what it says. Yeah, these covers are a little bit different, but they do have the original books like you got in the documentary, and they're only $18 for all three. Yep. Well, I know what I'll be ordering when I get paid.
God.
But so I know you kind of touched a little bit about Guillermo del Toro doing the movie, but since the documentary come out, it's, I guess, in post-production now. And I've talked to the director a little bit on Messenger. And, Scary Stories, the actual movie?
Okay. Yeah. All right. I was just curious.
Was you able to talk to anybody with the movie about it, or?
Kind of indirectly. I talked to the Schwartz family. I have throughout since very early on in the documentary. So that's been years, and they have had some community. They visited the set whenever they went. I remember talking with some of them regarding that. So I've had some kind of indirect conversations through the Schwartz family, and then just in the past few weeks or so, I had some nice words with the director there,
Andre.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's who I've been talking to. He's a very nice guy.
Yes, he seems great. He just kind of said, hey, looking forward to see your documentary. I said, hey, I'm looking forward to see your movie. So, yeah.
So I think Guillermo is just producing it because Andre's directing it.
And co-writing it.
Co-writing, okay.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have a harder time translating a story onto a screen. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's someone actually did some YouTube videos. It's kind of like fan made. Guys, I remember seeing the Big Toe one.
Yeah.
Have you saw those the fan made Big Toe videos?
Yep. I've seen actually a lot of people do it over the years. When you do research on this, it's like you come across a ton of them, and these just have had a big cultural impact. So yes, no, I've seen a bunch of them. I mean, I couldn't show them, and I couldn't really get into that with the documentary because I had to, and always intended to be careful with. Okay, I'm not adapting the stories. This is the story of the books,
That's what I was thinking. Like
stories, right?
The documentary's cool because you get to hear the history and learn about the books. But to take a story out of a book and then put it on film, there's a lot of people that judge.
So this,
because that's a piece of someone's childhood that you're trying to put on film, and if you ruin it,
you're right. There's definitely a point. That said,
but you gotta try.
And I sympathize because honestly, I guarantee you, as hard as I tried with this documentary and tried to do what I could with it and so on and so forth, I've hit expectations over the years where people will just assume I'm doing one thing with this or the other thing because there's built up expectations, and so and it's hard to. I mean, these are nostalgia titles, right? Well, you've built that nostalgia title and the stories and the illustrations and everything up in your head since childhood, so it's it's a lot to compete with, and so if you do a pretty good job with it, you're probably and if a majority of people say, hey, great, you did something really interesting with that, then hey, I think that's impressive because it's not an easy thing to do.
Oh yeah. And the one question, or I don't know if it was a narrative, but the one question that kept being asked through the documentary is, are these books too graphic for young children, like elementary school children? But that never really got answered.
Well, hell no, not these days. Well, back then maybe.
But it never got answered.
No.
I think the idea, though, is that there isn't one answer, right? I mean, I think.
I think it's up to the parent.
Yeah, and
different kids are different.
It's just. Yeah, different kids are different, and it's not an easy answer, right? It's I would like to think it, would like to open up a conversation about it, and actually a conversation about how we make these decisions, because I think that's almost comes more at the crux of it. There isn't one decision, but the question is, do we have a conversation about this, or is this so? What the American Library Association will say is that a vast majority of the time this is done quietly. Books are just taken off shelves without a conversation being had, right? I talked to someone who, had a story about a parent just getting in her head that witches were not appropriate for elementary kids, so we just started collecting and all the books that she was helping in the library. She would collect any books that had any witch in it and was put in the stack to be donated, to be gotten rid of, essentially. And that kind of stuff happens all the time, and unless the librarian kind of questions that, or maybe the librarian is put in a position where there's not too much they can do about it, so on and so forth. Things just kind of quietly happen without a conversation being had. So I think that's what I kind of agree in a lot of ways with what the American Library Association does, which is at least let's hash this out. Let's talk about it. Oftentimes it's done in school board meetings, and it's usually the most vocal people are the ones that think that it's just horrible that these books are in the library for anyone to read. And in some cases, they think these books are demonic, or they're anti this or anti that, and so on and so forth. And sometimes the loudest person gets what they want, and that's not necessarily the ideal situation for a conversation to be had, so it's tricky. It's I'm what I say is, I have an 8-year-old who does not like scary things. He doesn't. I mean, he tried a few minutes of the Goosebumps movie and he was like, nope, I'm out of here, and now he's still freaked out by Goosebumps, which Goosebumps is even much more tamer than these, right?
Very.
Generally speaking. And so so that said, so I
it depends on the kid.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not forcing these into my 8-year-old's, hands. That said, am I going to go to his elementary school and insist that these books be unavailable for any kids, fourth, fifth, sixth grade? No, I'm not going to do that because, other kids could really, this could be the one book that gets them reading, which I've talked to many people who said these books got them reading, and then they moved on to Stephen King and so on, and other authors, and now they're a reader because they got introduced to, macabre, scary things, at an early age.
And that's the interesting thing you just said. You're not going to force it on other kids, because if in your documentary, everyone that you heard talking, and even the people that were kind of against it was, or against it was, well, their kid went out and sought after it. They went out and got it. So their kids were obviously not forced it upon them. It wasn't forced upon them. They went out and they wanted to read it.
Yep.
So they weren't scared. Or they would be scared afterwards. But I mean, that's the difference in kids. Like, if I was 8 years old, I probably wouldn't have read it. At 8 years old, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't really care to be scared like that. Like,
I believe them trying to ban it made it where it was more popular because of that.
Yeah. Then that's where everyone knows about it. Then all the kids find out about it, like, there's what?
They're trying to ban this book. I
gotta find it now. Like they're telling me I can't have it. Now I need it.
Yeah.
Yep. And one interesting thing with this title is it's built a certain mystique over the years, right? And that's what interested a lot of kids at 9, 10, 11 years old, because there was a mystique around it. It was the book that was being talked about on the playground. Hey, someone, so-and-so Bobby's got, the scary stories to tell in dark books, and he actually read it, and and he loved it or whatever, but I'm not doing it or whatever, I mean, it's something that's talked about, right? And that develops a certain mystique. And the interesting thing about these books is that, there's been a built-up mystique and mystery about them without a lot of conversation being had about them, and not a lot of knowledge, because again, the author passed away a long time ago, and the illustrator kind of famously does not do interviews, and so it's not like R.L. Stine, who is a lovely man, does a great interview, but he's done a million interviews, and there's not much mystery there, right? And so
Hey, one thing I want to touch on before we have to go, when I got the books that I recently ordered a few years ago,
I want to read them now.
They're somewhere around here. But
yeah.
Anyways,
now I'm like,
all right. When I started reading The Big Toe, I'm sitting there thinking, man, I was writing about cannibals. This kid's walking through and finds a toe hanging out the ground, pops it out, and they go. And how big was this damn toe? If it's feeding the whole family. So is this?
That is so German, though. That is very Grimm's fairy tales. I mean, you think of Hansel and Gretel. I mean, she was trying to eat these children, right?
Yeah.
True.
There's a ton of that's a very, like I said, I think of it as Germanesque, because there were just a lot of stories of you're right, cannibalism and stuff like that, but like eating of body parts and stuff like that. I mean, it's not, yes, it seems extreme, but at the same time, I think of Greek and Roman mythology. I mean, there's a lot of stories of people eating other people, or and a lot of these stories, people turned into animals of different kinds, right? That's true. That we've been telling that in our folk tales and myths for thousands of years, right? And it kind of, I think it's interesting because it kind of touches on these deep-seated things about us, right? One of the stories I don't touch on too much in the documentary, but I'm a fan of, is the Wendigo, which is, if you've seen read the book Pet Cemetery, and then they just did a re-release of it. That gets into the Wendigo at least a little bit, and that's a beast that's it's cannibalistic and so on. But it has to do with it's generally synonymous with like winter weather and people. Again, we're talking about hundreds of years ago, maybe 100 years ago. Turning to cannibalism when things got cold and they but you shouldn't do that. That's something you think about doing because it's cold and you're out of food, but the Wendigo will come and or it's synonymous. The Wendigo is synonymous with like people and the people turn into a monster and eat other people because that was something that was done in certain cultures, right? Or at least was something that people feared and so on. And so so many of these things have this deep-rooted fears that are less common now, but certainly it has a history to it, and oftentimes having to do with certain people of a certain area and stuff. And that's just I find that fun to talk about and fun to research, because it's my degrees are all in English literature, and I like to get under the hood, so to speak, and see, okay, why are these stories being told, and it's fun.
You got well, what I was going to ask before we end, what was your favorite story out of all of them in the books, or scared you the most, or
honestly, the Big Toe.
Oh, well, there you go. Bam.
Over time, I've given a couple different answers, because there's a few that I remember fondly and so on. The Bride is a good one. It's very just macabre and sad, because it has to do with a childish game of hide and seek, and a woman hides in like a suitcase or a case, and is accidentally locked in, and they find her many years later, and she's rotted away. I've said that before, but the Big Toe, I just find it's the first story of the first book. It really is to some degree synonymous with, I think Alvin Schwartz in theory might have said that was his favorite story, partially because it gets to the root of this idea of storytelling, right, and how important it is to tell a story a certain way, right? Mark Twain actually used the version he told was the Golden Arm, but it was essentially the same thing as the Big Toe, right? It's you stole something from a dead person, a corpse, and then they come back. So who's got my golden arm? Same thing with the Big Toe. But it's what's really important is how you tell that story. You got to amp up the tension, and you've got to add details and so on. And Mark Twain kind of famously, had these speeches where he would talk about the Golden Arm being a really good example of that. It matters how you tell a story, because I could tell that story right now, the Big Toe or the Golden Arm, whichever one, and I could just tell it in a very uninteresting way, and you're like, whatever, But if I'm a really good storyteller, I'm going to lock you in and get you really invested in, oh gosh, this person is getting closer and closer and closer and so on. So for me, I think that's just has become somewhat synonymous with the scary stories you tell in dark books, but also it's synonymous with like storytelling, around the campfire type stuff, and so I think generally that has become or evolved into my favorite.
Well, I appreciate it, Cody, for coming on and talking with us and just the rundown with everything. Tell us when's the documentary going to be available for sale? That way, and the website and everything that people can get a hold of it.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. So it's going to be available on video on demand May 7th, and then the DVD will be available July 16th. It is showing in a few select theaters, but I don't have a list with me, so you could definitely take a look there. But otherwise, May 7th, definitely for VOD. And my website, scarystoriesdoc.com. So Scary Stories and then DOC as in documentary, scarystoriesdoc.com. So I'll definitely be posting there. Okay, go here if you want to watch it digitally. Here's where you can buy it on DVD, that sort of thing.
Well, thank you so much, Cody. I hope you have a good evening. And
yeah, we look forward to
keep in touch.
I'll definitely be buying this DVD as well because gotta have it in the collection.
Great, awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, guys. That was Cody Meirick. And I hope y'all enjoyed that interview. And be sure to go over to tnhorror.com and check out Yeti's True Story Tuesdays and Fucked Up Fridays and How to Watch a Horror Remake by Isaac Thorne. You know, really great articles up. So go hit that shit up. And you got anybody else?
I want to give a shout out to It's a Horror Podcast. You know, awesome folks over there. And also, next week's movie of the week, I did a review for it. So go check that out.
Next week's podcast will be, we're changing it up. We did this interview for this week, so it's news. We're going to do some horror trivia, Trivial Pursuit style. That's what it is, the horror movie edition of Trivial Pursuit. And Digging the Marrow.
Digging Up the Marrow.
Digging Up the Marrow.
What the fuck, man? You ever get that movie wrong? That's the best movie ever.
And I see why JimJam liked this movie, because it is a fucking Adam Green fan fest, and anybody that's on his jock will love this movie.
I thought you was going to be like, I love this movie. And you did not say that.
No, I don't love this movie.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I like the movie. But you'll hear my comments on it on next week's podcast. So, tnhorror.com, guys.
So that's all we got. We out.